Well, first of all, I want to thank Steve Doherty. You know, I served with Steve in the legislature for 4 or 6 years. Time flies when you're having fun. 4 years, I guess it was. And very seldom did I get a chance to talk after Steve. So now I get a chance to tell you the rest of the story. You know, Steve was a mentor of mine. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. He was not minority leader, by the way. He was Democratic leader of the Montana Senate. He worked very hard to mentor people along in leadership, and it really paid off for me personally. Quite frankly, he set a fine example and led with some great speeches, as you can tell when he was talking up here today. One of the best I've heard from you, in fact, Steve. That was good. At any rate, he absolutely made my experience in the Montana Senate very special and very enjoyable for the sessions we served with, and in fact after he was gone. And he's not only a mentor of mine, he's a friend. I will just tell you a real quick story. When I was thinking about running for the Montana Senate, I met Steve in a small grocery store that sells some organic food that we often go to when we're in Great Falls. And Steve said, "You know what? If you run, I will pay your filing fee." And I thought, gosh, that's great. Figuring it'd be $300-400 bucks. Yeah, I found out later it was $15. But you know, it's all relative, and we appreciate that, Steve. Thank you very much. Steve talked about my wife. My wife Charlotte is home at the farm. She's probably watching on C-SPAN right now, as a matter of fact. We farmed the land that my parents and grandparents farmed. It's been in the family for almost 100 years. She is home right now, as a matter of fact, because on that weekend when Steve said things weren't going very well, we had an odd problem, a problem we haven't had for about 10 or 12 years. We actually got enough moisture where we couldn't go into the fields. So she was home and going to organize my son-in-law and brother to get on the tractor. We picked up another inch of rain last night, so things are good on the farm, I'll tell you that. But in about 1987, almost 20 years ago this year, Charlotte and I converted that land to organics, and it was the right thing to do for us. I mean, it made a lot of sense. It enabled us to keep the farm in the family, and enabled us to have my daughter and son-in-law and their 2 children to come back to the farm. And I'm particularly proud of that, because in a time where we've had depopulation in rural Montana, we're able to, on a farm that's about half the average size of farms in eastern Montana, we're able to have my daughter and son-in-law come back and be the 4th generation. But the truth is that when I ran for the Montana Senate, you know, I ran for reasons for my kids and my grandkids, for quality of life. And back in 1997, there was a policy that was put forth in the Montana legislature to deregulate electricity, and Steve Doherty opposed that measure, but he didn't have enough votes with it. We had the 4th lowest electricity rates in the nation, and for some reason the Republican-led legislature that year felt that they needed to deregulate, and it's been a disaster ever since. And that got me to the point where I said I need to run for the legislature. And so we did. We worked hard, and we won in a district that, as Steve said, was very, very difficult for Democrats to win in, but we represented the people well, and we got reelected again 4 years later. When we decided to run for the U.S. Senate, about 2 years ago right now, as a matter of fact, it was for the same reasons. It wasn't to improve my quality of life. I mean, we live 12 miles west of Big Sandy, clean air. You know, you get up in the morning, the birds are singing, the grass is green. I mean, how I improved my quality of life on the farm is I bought a new air ride tractor seat for my tractor. But we decided to run for the U.S. Senate for those very same reasons, for my kids, for my grandkids, for your kids, and for your grandkids. And we followed the same format we held on the farm. That format that you work hard, you get out, you visit with people, you listen, and you do what's right, and if people are paying attention, you get elected. And that's exactly what we did. But in the meantime, you got to pay attention to what's around you. You know, on our farm we raise grains and lentils. It's a dryland operation. Average year we get about 12 inches of moisture. You got to know that to be a good farmer. You got to know what you're working with. If I were to raise pineapples on my farm west of Big Sandy, not only wouldn't they grow, but I'd probably be committed by the neighborhood. But you also have to have your ears open, and you have to have a pulse of the community so that you can change when the opportunity is right. And we worked hard, and we listened, and we did the old saying my father said: "You've got two ears and one mouth. Act accordingly." And people responded. And we were able to do some good things, particularly when we got in the majority after Doherty left the Montana Senate. But I want to talk about state legislatures a little bit, because Progressive State Network is doing some great work there. Just as we do great work on the family farm, just as small businesses do great work and working families do great work, it's in those state legislatures, those laboratories, I would call them, where you push the pencil. You respond to the needs of the people much more quicker than you do here, and it's through those type of democratic processes that you get responses. For example, it's important to note that through the actions, and I think Joel talked about it, through the actions of this outfit, you were able to get several resolutions in on Iraq. And I think, as Bernie said, and thanks Bernie for being here, by the way, as Bernie